Good morning and peace be upon you wherever you're tuning in from. My name is Qasim Rashid and this is the Qasim Rashid Show here on Sirius XM Urban View Channel 126, the most awesome show in the multiverse. We've got a phenomenal show lined up. Before we dive in, I want to thank today's sponsor, Ground News. I've been working with Ground News for over a year now, and I use it because it helps me cut through the noise of our broken media ecosystem. It's the only platform I've found that lets you instantly compare how stories are covered across the political spectrum, left, center, and right. Look, as we see corporate media collapse or be bought out by billionaires, I wanted to find a tool to help me ensure the news I was consuming was accurate and vetted. That's what Ground News helps me do. For me, it's about seeing bias, blind spots, and the stories that aren't being told. And that's why I think it's the perfect fit for my listeners. Look, you all care about justice, truth, and accountability, and Ground News helps you get that full picture. You can try it for yourself and get 40% off what's called their Unlimited Access Vantage Plan. Go to groundnews.com/show, groundnews.com/show. And before we go, I want to thank today's sponsor, Ground News. An amazing tool to help you confirm the news you're using is accurate. Visit groundnews.com/show and get 40% off the Unlimited Access Vantage Plan. Two amazing guests, Graham Platner, running for U.S. Senate in Maine on a 100% people-funded campaign, a U.S. Marine veteran who has been unapologetic on these issues that we care about, loudly condemning the genocide in Gaza, calling out Chuck Schumer for being the feckless leader that he is, demanding universal health care, demanding getting corporate money out of politics, demanding an economy that works for working people, not for the billionaire class. And I had a chance to meet with him in DC just this week. We had a chance to sit down one-on-one and just ask him these tough questions, straight face-to-face, look him in the eye and ask him, and he knocked them out of the park. And I don't want you to take my word for it. I want you to listen to him directly, because he's got a sense of authenticity that I think we're not used to seeing in politicians. So many politicians are so poll tested and focus group tested that they'll only do what their consultants allow them to say. And consultants don't know a damn thing about politics. They think that because they've read some poll group somewhere that they're God's gift to politics. They haven't knocked doors. They haven't raised money by going to people asking for $10 at a time. They're sitting in these ivory towers pretending it's 2008, not realizing that the entire politics rule book is out the window. And the one thing that sustains, the one thing that maintains, the one thing that will always maintain is authenticity, is sincerity, is genuinely being who you are. And Graham Platner brings that to the table. And I wanted to have the opportunity to sit down with him, and we had that conversation, and I'm going to share that with you. The second interview is with a remarkable person that I had the chance to interview, again, live in real time. And if you've been following the news, you know, and I've been writing about this, that there is a flotilla of 44 ships going to Gaza to break the siege, the illegal blockade enforced by the Israeli military, and to bring alleviation to the famine and genocide happening in Gaza. Of those 44 ships, about 10 have been captured by the Israeli military, about 33 are still heading forward. They're a couple of days away, and or they're approaching there right now as you're listening to this. And I had the chance to interview Bae Franklin. Bae Franklin is a U.S. military veteran. She is on the flotilla, and she's actually here, a resident of Illinois with me. But again, this is an example of somebody who enlisted to serve this country and recognized that that service cannot just stop after her time in as a service member comes to an end. And so she's risking life and limb, literally, to break this genocidal siege and create an opportunity for the people in Gaza to have basic access to food and health care and basic human dignity. And look, I can't emphasize enough how critical these conversations are, because corporate media, Western media, is not covering them. They're not giving them any airtime, and it was actually a heartbreaking conversation, because you see a person doing what you think you would do if you were alive during the Holocaust and trying to protect innocent Jewish civilians from being mass murdered by this horrific Nazi regime. A genocide. And she's doing that. She is preventing are working to prevent a genocide, working to stop a genocide from advancing, and she's getting no coverage for it. And so it makes me think about how, we always reflect on, well, how did this genocide happen back then? How did people not know? How did they not take action? And we're seeing it in real time. It's being broadcast on our cell phones, on our iPads, on our computer screens, on our TV screens, and people are just kind of like, they probably deserved it. What can I do about it? And the people who are stepping up, like Bae Franklin, like the folks listening, and I appreciate each of you. I appreciate you because you're on the right side of history, because you're raising your voice, you're not sitting idle, you're recognizing that you can and must do something, and whether that's simply elevating your voice and just speaking truth to power, that's a courageous act. Whether you're contributing to Humanity First or Palestinian Children Relief Fund or ANERA or World Central Kitchen, that's making a big difference. Whether you're simply sharing content and saying, hey, here's an interview of somebody who's not getting the attention they deserve, Bae Franklin, and her voice needs to be elevated. All these things matter. And we know they matter because we're seeing example after example of Netanyahu and the Israeli government talk about how they are trying to commandeer TikTok and Twitter and Facebook, and how they are launching a bot army to combat the online narrative that they're committing genocide. They're losing the messaging battle, and they're losing the messaging battle for two reasons. One reason is because facts are easier to sell than lies, and I believe that. The fact is that they're committing genocide, and people understand what genocide is. They're recognizing it. This is why it's overwhelming support for the Palestinian people. And two, the reason that they're losing the messaging battle is because people are getting the courage to speak up. And it's not just about communicating what's happening. It's about getting folks out in the open and saying, not in my name. And I will say this, I've been saying this from the beginning, but I will never tolerate someone making this a Jewish versus Muslim thing. It's not. This is not a Jewish versus Muslim thing. This is a humanitarian versus an anti-humanitarian thing. Because the number of Jewish people who have been at the forefront of condemning this genocide and saying not in my name is truly powerful. And I want to recognize our Jewish listeners, I want to recognize the Jewish people for being at the forefront of saying never again must mean never again. And I take exception, extreme exception, offense, and outright condemnation of anyone who tries to blame Jewish people for this genocide. It's offensive, it's wrong, it's bigoted, it's stupid, it's anti-Semitic, it has no place in civilized discourse. And I get inspired whenever I go to a anti-genocide rally, a pro-justice rally, I get inspired to see Jewish people, Palestinians, Muslims, Christians, Arab Christians, white Christians, black Muslims, people of all faiths and races and backgrounds standing together against genocide. That's what this is. This is humanity versus genocide. That's what this has always been about. And that is the message that we have to have going forward. And so as you see these bots online trying to justify these atrocities, don't bother debating with them. They're a bot. They're there to waste your time. They're there to raise your blood pressure. They're there to piss you off and to make you feel like you're smaller than you are. And you should know that you are the biggest threat to them because you are a person who is speaking with courage and confidence, refusing to capitulate, refusing to bend the knee to fascism. That's what you are, and you should be proud of that. So as we reach these critical moments, now Trump has announced another peace deal. It's like the fourth one that the Israeli government keeps breaking. I'm not confident that this will hold because the last ones haven't, because Netanyahu still is trying to stay out of prison, because he still continues to block aid. He still continues to fund and enable this genocide that unfortunately too many politicians in the US are supporting as well. So I'll believe this when they actually get aid into Gaza. I'll believe this when they actually withdraw the military from Gaza. I'll believe this when the control of Gaza is in the hands of the Palestinian people. So that's what we're up against. When we come back from break, I'm going to start the interview with Graham Platner, a U.S. Marine veteran running for U.S. Senate in the state of Maine against Susan Collins. And his victory there would be seismic. It would be historic. He has the momentum. He's raising the money. What he needs are volunteers. What he needs are folks willing to go the extra mile with him and say, it's not just enough to condemn corporate money in politics. It's not just enough to say that politicians should stop taking corporate money. We need to show up for the politicians, for the public servants who are saying, you know what, I agree. We need to get corporate money out of politics, and I'm going to run a clean campaign. We need to show up for them. I can't emphasize that enough. If we don't show up for them, then we can't complain, why are there no people-funded candidates in office? And we get who we organize for. I'm going to say that again. We get who we organize for. And if corporations are organizing for their corporate puppets, and we're not organizing for our people-funded public servants, then we get who we organize for. So people like Graham Platner are somebody who I'm happy to throw my name behind because of the work he's done, the work he's doing, the vision he has, and the authenticity and sincerity with which he leads. When we come back from break, we'll talk to him. You're listening to the Qasim Rashid Show here on Sirius XM Urban View Channel 126, the most awesome show in the multiverse. If you're listening on Substack or on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button so we can continue to create this content. Our content has no paywall, ever. We'll never have a paywall. And whether you become a free or a paid subscriber, you get access to the same stuff. If you can become a paid subscriber, it goes a long way towards helping us create this content and get these interviews and be able to travel to provide, to complete these interviews. I had to travel to DC for this one. Graham Platner, after this break, don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're listening to the Qasim Rashid Show here on Sirius XM Urban View Channel 126, the most awesome show in the multiverse. If you're listening on Substack, make sure you hit that subscribe button. As I mentioned just before going to break, it's critical to have your support so we can continue to build this platform. I'm excited that the Qasim Rashid Show podcast has now exceeded 150,000 downloads, which is fantastic. It's brilliant. I can't wait till we hit 1 million, which I think we will within this next year because you guys continue to support me. So grateful for that. Graham Platner, U.S. Marine veteran, running for U.S. Senate in Maine, an oyster farmer by trade, comes from a town of 1,000 people. And I was at an event watching him speak, and he goes, I've had a journalist call me and say, how are you so authentic and how are you so able to speak to these rural voters in Maine? And I looked at him like, what kind of a stupid question is that? I'm authentic because it's just who I am. Why is that something that's hard for politicians, just to be who you are? And I can speak to rural voters in Maine because I'm an effing rural voter in Maine. I live in a town of 1,000 people. You're asking me how I know how to talk to myself. This is not a complicated thing. And he was pointing out how the bar is just so low for politicians that they say one authentic thing and suddenly they're like, oh my God, look at how authentic this guy is. Politics to me is not hard. It's just being your sincere and genuine self and letting people know that what you say is what you mean and what you mean is what you say. Unfortunately, that's a high bar. But this conversation that I had with Graham after his lecture at this event was fantastic. And I'm going to pause and I'm going to play this interview. I asked him a couple of tough questions and I asked him a couple of questions on politics. And I think you'll see what I mean. So I'm going to pause and play the clip, the interview with Graham Platner, candidate for U.S. Senate in Maine. I'm here with Graham Platner, Democrat running for U.S. Senate in the great state of Maine to replace the very concerned Suzanne Collins. Susan Collins, I can't tell, it doesn't matter because she's going to be out of a job hopefully next year, a little bit after this time. Graham, thanks for giving us a few minutes.
Oh, hey, it's my pleasure.
I'm going to have 3 tough questions and then 3 fun questions.
Cool.
First tough question is, you said you are running as a Democrat because you're a proud Democrat. What happened that made the Democratic Party be the party of FDR that passed seismic legislation to being a party that's been defanged, seemingly?
Oh, I mean, I think it's just, there was a choice made, mostly in the late 80s and into the 90s, where the Democratic Party did not show up for organized labor. The Democratic Party did not show up for working people, and the Democratic Party made a decision that leaning into high-dollar fundraising and money was something they had to do.
Yeah.
That essentially has colored everything since. And I firmly believe this. And I think that the only way that we need to excise that from the party. We need to get back to a world in which if you're a corporation, if you're the ultra rich, if you're trying to figure out ways to screw working people, the Republican Party is the party for you. and there should be absolutely no room for you under the Democratic tent. Until we do that, I think we are doomed to find ourselves back in these positions.
I don't know of a single job where if you have a 26% approval rating, you get rehired for another year. But that's what the Democratic Party is right now. I'm not the biggest fan of Chuck Schumer. I've seen your public statements. You're not either. What would you be doing differently than Chuck Schumer right now?
Right now, look, we need to be asking for the moon over the shutdown. That way we can message very clearly that the reason the government just shut down is because Republicans do not want to refund Medicaid and Medicare. They want to take away your health care, and they are willing to let the government shut down just to like maintain cuts to a system. Like, we're not even asking to expand anything. We're just asking to protect what was just a few months ago. The fact that Chuck Schumer is still treating this like there's going to be some kind of negotiation where the other side is going to come to the table and we're actually going to figure out an answer together is ridiculous. I think at this point we know very well where the Republicans and the Trump administration sits. And so for that reason, we need to stop treating the other side like it's a good faith actor when we know that it isn't.
Yeah.
And that way, when the government does shut down, because they're not going to give us anything, we can say that the reason it happened is because they refused to refund Medicaid and Medicare.
And that goes back to being fighters that we're not
Yeah.
consistently doing right now. And you know, you're on record, you want universal health care as a human right.
Yeah.
You want to get corporate money out of politics. Let's talk about the third tough question that I don't think is going to be tough for you. It's tough for a lot of Democrats. I'm getting hundreds of texts saying, you know, we're end of quarter or we're fundraising for end of year, send us $5 more. And every time I ask the question, are you going to condemn the genocide in Gaza?
Yeah.
Or are you going to continue? And I've had a handful that have responded and say, yeah, of course I will. And those are the ones I'm donating to.
Yep.
92% of Democrats want to stop funding Netanyahu,
Yep.
recognize him as a war criminal. I'm not going to ask you if you condemn the genocide. You've already been on record with that. It's on your actual platform. It's powerful, it's courageous, it's inspiring. What I want to ask you is, why are so many Democrats afraid of just doing the morally right thing and the politically right thing on this issue?
That is a question I actually really wonder the answer to, I'll be honest. As somebody who has just gotten into this fray in the past, frankly, 6 weeks, I was hoping that I would find some actual answer there, because it like, for me, there is this element, like, is it really just the money? That's actually the thing. It might be. It's so morally reprehensible. It's so clear what is happening. It's so utterly disgusting that the fact that it might just be a couple $1,000s or tens of $1,000s in campaign donations, if that's what's actually doing it, I mean, it seems so fucking insane. And yet, I have not found any evidence to the contrary,
Yeah.
which is deeply depressing. I'm not going to lie. I wish I had a good answer on that.
No, that is a good
I
answer.
don't.
That's what we're struggling with as well. And if you're watching this and you want to donate to a candidate who's actually morally righteous and upright on this, this is the man that you want to support. All right, got the tough questions. Let's ask some more fun questions.
Oh, I like fun ones.
Who's going to win the World Series this year?
Ooh. I'm not a baseball fan,
Okay.
which is a terrible thing for me to admit. But
Well, Maine doesn't have a baseball
we
team.
don't. I am a huge Hearts of Pine fan, which is the Portland soccer team.
Okay. So is there a sport we can talk about that's going to work for you?
You can say Red Sox.
Yeah, I know. Okay, fine. I'll just say Red Sox. I'll say Red Sox.
All right, deal.
Yeah.
All right, DC or Marvel?
Oh, Marvel, hands down. Mostly just because DC just really, really sucked on the graphics, and the storytelling was so bad.
Even the last Superman one with James Gunn?
Actually, I didn't see that one.
Okay, you gotta see that.
I'm still going off of look, Chris Hemsworth as Thor will always just kind of be my one of my favorites. So.
Okay, so Marvel. I can't knock you on that one. All right, Star Trek versus Star Wars.
Oh wow, this is hard. Before Rogue One and Andor, it would easily have been Star Trek. But then Rogue One, and then obviously Andor has happened, and now I'm in a much more complicated position because I truly love that film and the show, and it's everything it says about resistance in
Yeah.
politics. But I think long term I'll still have to go with Star Trek, because it shows us a future in which scarcity is no longer a problem. And I think that really allows us to dream much bigger.
Yeah.
I think Star Trek is much more based in a world that I want to see. Star Wars is mostly just fun.
Yeah.
So
I'll give you that. In Star Trek, I mean, this is what Dr. King talked about in his Nobel Peace Prize acceptance speech, that we no longer live in a world where scarcity is an issue.
that's right.
So let's elaborate on that. Star Trek, Gene Roddenberry obviously ran with that. Closing message to voters, to folks who are thinking about your campaign.
My closing message is that you should still have an immense amount of hope. This whole thing isn't over yet. We have the ability to build something. We have the ability to organize and to connect. We have the ability to actually build the power to build the world that we all know we need in the future. Frankly, the post-scarcity world.
That's right.
That is all still on the table, as dark as things seem. And so I think it's really important for folks to remember that as brutal as every day you open your phone is, and I get that behind all of this, there really is a much deeper energy that if we only tap into it, we can build the future that we want.
He said Star Trek, but his closing message is A New Hope. Graham Platner, appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much.
That, my friends, is Graham Platner, candidate for U.S. Senate in Maine. We had a great time. We spoke for a while after the interview. He's as authentic and as genuine as they come. And I have to give myself a pat on the back when I made the comment about, he says he likes Star Trek, but he's giving us a new hope. That was inspired. That just kind of came at the moment. And I will definitely pretend like I did something there. But no, it was fun. It was a great interview. And look, this is what I mean. It's not simply enough to say we want people-funded candidates. It's not simply enough to say we want politics of humanity. It shouldn't be a high bar to say no more bombs for genocide. That should not be a high bar. Unfortunately, it is. And Graham Platner is clearing that bar. He's doing a brilliant job. And you heard me asking this question. Why is it so difficult for Democrats to simply stop taking this AIPAC money or stop supporting genocide? Republicans as well. I don't want to mince words on this. This is a bipartisan cancer. And you heard his answer that it really can't be about the money, but I'm shocked that that's what it seems to be about. That's insane to me. And this is why it's so critical we step up. This is why we need to have hope, because it is not insurmountable. It is not something that we can't overcome. We can. We just need to be committed to it in a dedicated, in a sincere, in a consistent way. And you don't need to come in and donate $1,000, $5, $2. Just be engaged, be part of it. If you can't donate money, donate time, volunteer, make phone calls, knock doors. It goes a long way. Graham Platner, we'll have him back on a little bit later, but this is a guy who I can see have a really successful career if we give him the support that he needs, because he is doing the work he needs to do. He's leading by example. Bae Franklin. This interview came about kind of last second because she's on the flotilla heading to Gaza right now in the middle of the Mediterranean. Reception's not great, so you're going to hear some audio issues. But at a time when corporate and Western media is ignoring this genocide, at a time when the Israeli government has killed more than 300 journalists in Gaza, when it has conducted a full international media blackout from journalists entering Gaza, the only journalists that they let enter are the ones guided by the IDF. And the IDF bans them from going anywhere or doing anything. It's absurd. This is not what free press and free speech and free journalism looks like. This is what state authoritarian media looks like. And Bae Franklin is not a journalist. She's a veteran as well. And she's from my home state of Illinois. And she is risking life and limb to go to Gaza on this flotilla and live her values, and never again must mean never again. And I think that's powerful. I think it's inspiring. And I think the least I can do is elevate her voice and her platform so that you can hear directly from the people on the front lines of combating this genocide. You can hear the fear in her voice. And after our interview ended, she sent me a text saying that right after our interview ended, Israeli drones are flying overhead. We're not sure what they're doing. She's still safe right now, and we hope she stays that way. But this is the world that they face. When literally nobody else is willing to put their life on the line. No government is sending their soldiers to protect people from suffering from genocide. She's doing so. And I want you to think about this, right? This is an important point. If you're old enough, like I am, to remember the monstrosity that was the Iraq War, all we heard about constantly was, we need to liberate the Iraqi people from a dictator. We need to liberate the Iraqi people from a horrible person. I'm not here to defend Saddam Hussein. That's not what this is about. That was the excuse used to decimate the Iraqi military, to decimate the country, kill hundreds of thousands of people. It was a hypocritical, disgusting, backwards claim. Now we know for a fact 2 million people are suffering genocide and famine in Gaza, caused by, committed by Netanyahu and the Israeli government, funded by the US government. And not a single country in the world is willing to send their military to say, hey, we're going to stop this siege. Now we have 44 ships from the Global Sumud Flotilla, leading by example, putting themselves on the line, going through every inspection and checkpoint imaginable to show that we have no weapons, we have no intent for violence, we have no arms, we have nothing except food and medicine. And we are getting everything, we're doing everything we can do to get our people over to Gaza as quickly as possible. That's the world that we're in right now. Hey Alexa, I'll be back in 1 second. 1 second. So when we talk about people who are leading by example, Bae Franklin is one such example of that. So let me play this interview with her. Again, the reception's a bit choppy because she is in the middle of the Mediterranean trying to break a siege and end famine and genocide. But listen to her words, and listen to her words of hope and inspiration despite these dark times. This is Bae Franklin on the flotilla headed towards Gaza.
Hey all, thanks for joining in. We're doing a live kind of impromptu here with Bae Franklin, who's going to be joining me in just a second here. She's on the Global Sumud Flotilla heading to Gaza. Bae, thank you for being with us.
Hi, Qasim. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, look, this is such an important moment, and I'm so grateful to have a few minutes with you. I know you're on the Global Sumud Flotilla. You and I are both from Illinois. You're a veteran, and so I wanted to have this conversation. Thank you for making yourself available. Before we get into the details, specifics, how are you managing? Are you guys stable? Are you safe right now? Kind of give us the status of where you guys are right now.
Yeah, we're stable. We're really anticipating anything at any time. You can see I'm in all my gear, ready. Everybody's on standby. There's been some activity. I apologize if it's windy. I try to find the best place on the boat to do this.
I can hear you just fine.
Perfect. So yeah, this is where the training kicks in. This is why we practice all of the drills that we did. And we sort of built up our, mindful places, talk to God quite often, but right now is where it kicks in.
You are a U.S. military veteran. What motivated you to once again put your life on the line to serve a greater cause? What motivated you to join the flotilla?
Quite frankly, because it was the right thing to do. My heart wasn't going to let me have a moment of peace if I didn't. And the summer I watched 2 other flotillas take off. When I saw the call for veterans, I knew I was going before my name was even on the manifest. It's just one of those things where, they would do X, Y, and Z during World War II or in all of these other tragic atrocities and whatnot. But I feel honored and privileged that I actually had the chance to act on it. And I have a fantastic team. I've met so many wonderful people from all across the world who have this exact cause in their heart. So really, it's quite an honor to be here.
Well, if you're just tuning in to speak with Bae Franklin, a U.S. military veteran out of Illinois, who is on the Global Sumud Flotilla right now. And you guys are going to be approaching Gaza soon. How long has the journey been to get to where you are right now?
We took off August 31st. So this is about 28, 29 days that we've been at sea. There have been multiple reasons why this had to be extended, from weather to mechanical issues to drone attacks. We've incurred at least 3. I was on night watch on my ship with people from a drone that was on September 9th or 10th. So to watch that happen in real time was pretty jarring. We were alert for the rest of the night. And then September 23rd, we experienced the worst of it so far. Our comms were jammed. They played ABBA. And then the veteran ship is called the Awela. We just started getting below deck to all of the sound of these bombs going off. I don't know if you've seen the footage. We have CCTV on all of our cameras, even in Tunisia. We saw the fire tails drop and the fires that started on the boats, and then authorities came out and said it was a cigarette, or that our participants were messing around and started it themselves. The footage speaks for itself.
Yep. No, the propaganda, we're seeing the propaganda from the Israeli military trying to delegitimize the work you're doing. Now, again, to be clear, you're a humanitarian flotilla. You're not a weapon of war. You're not a military vehicle. You are providing aid and supplies to what is acknowledged as a genocide and as a famine. One of the questions Yeah, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. I was going to agree with you. That's exactly right. We've all taken and believe in nonviolence. We've taken a vow of nonviolence. We've had so many port authorities search our vessel from top to bottom. This is all we have.
Excellent. I mean, and it's always critical to have that verification independently so that nobody can later on accuse you of doing something sinister. And I think you're doing it the right way. The number one question I get from folks is how can they provide support? How can they support you and the work that you're doing? You're doing the hard work of being out there, putting your life on the line against a genocidal regime. What can folks do to support you, and what steps should they be taking right now?
Go befriend the Palestinians in your city. Go break bread with people that you think are different than you. Go befriend Palestinians who are there in Gaza and want a loving listener. We are lucky here on this vessel that we are funded through grassroots donations. We have everything that we need materially, but what I need you to do is reach across the table to somebody that you think different, because surely they're not. There's no distinction of separation that exists between us. And anybody who says otherwise, I just want to ask them, who got to you? Why do you think this way? Every person, every soul that is on earth here at the same time, and that's got to mean something. It surely means something to me. And we're siblings in humanity, so I just need all of us to show up that way.
That's a beautiful message, and it's one I echo. James Baldwin extensively talks about that the children are all ours, all of them, all over the globe. And I've begun to suspect that whosoever can't understand that is incapable of morality. And it's powerful to hear you echo that same message. I want to be respectful of your time. I know it's in the middle of the night there. You probably need rest as well. What is a message that you want everyone to understand and think about in these coming crucial next couple of days?
If you can feel any sort of implicit bias, if you feel you lean so hard one way that is opposing the truth that this is genocide, if you feel strongly that this happened, it's going to take all of us, and we can't shame people when they don't know. I know we really feel like we want to. I know I get angry and I get indignant. I get a little too prideful, but that creates more distance from the outcome that we want. And just try to tap into that Christ consciousness of love, of brotherly love, because essentially that radical peace is going to be what ends this.
Bae, thank you for this beautiful message. Thank you for serving our country. Thank you for serving our humanity by being there. I'm praying for your safe journey, and I'm praying for your successful trip to get aid into Gaza to stop this famine, to stop this genocide. Please know you always have a platform here to share this message, and I'm hopeful that when you're back in Illinois, we can break bread together.
I would love that, Qasim. Thank you so much.
As I mentioned, after the interview, she texted me asking for prayers because the Israeli military is sending drones above them, monitoring them. They've been open fire on by the Israeli military in the past, and it's an extraordinarily dangerous situation. They are on watch 24/7, resting, sleeping with one eye open. And again, if you've ever asked yourself, as you study the atrocities of history, what you would be doing in those moments, it's whatever you're doing right now. It's whatever you're doing right now. And I encourage you to live a life of courage and dedication to humanity, and don't be slow about speaking up. We've had this conversation before that, well, now we're coming up on 2 years of this genocide, and some people are now finally speaking up. And there's two philosophies. One philosophy is, why did it take you so long? How dare you? And the other philosophy is, hey, you got here when you got here. Now let's get to work. We don't have time to waste. And I'm of that second philosophy. I will always encourage people to be assertive and stand on the right side of history. I will not shame people for taking longer than I would have taken, because God knows I've taken longer on issues that I didn't fully understand. And we can either shame people for not understanding sooner, or we can embrace people for being on the right side of history and growing our coalition. We need to grow our coalition. And for those of you who are upset at those taking a long time, I'm not mad at you for being upset. I'm not going to knock you for being upset. I will simply say that ultimately we need to grow our coalition. And do what you got to do to get upset and to vent and to show your anger, but don't make the mistake of being hopeless. Don't make the mistake of thinking that it's too late. It may be too late for some. In fact, it is for those who've been murdered. It's not too late for those who are still alive and need our assistance and need us to grow our coalition and be there. And Bae Franklin is an example of somebody who has led by example from the beginning. And if you're now listening to her words 2 years later and realizing that, hey, maybe I was wrong to be silent, but I'm going to speak up now, then welcome to the club. Welcome to the right side of history. Welcome to the side of compassion and empathy, courage and justice. We're glad you're here, and we hope that you continue to grow, and we hope that you continue to inspire other people to join, because we need as many people to be as part of this coalition as possible. And that begins by electing people like Graham Platner to the US Senate. That begins by supporting the organizations that are doing the work, and by expanding the platforms of those who are on the front lines and making sure the whole world hears them. The fact that corporate media will not interview these courageous individuals is a shame. It speaks to the collapse and the capitulation and the complicity of corporate media, and it explains why we need to have more independent voices pushing back against that nonsense and actually driving truth to power. That's what we're trying to do here with this show, and why I'm grateful for your support. All right, when we come back from break, we'll talk about the ICE raids here in Chicago and the demonization that Pam Bondi and Trump are trying to commit. I've been at the Broadview ICE facility multiple times now, and while the Trump regime tries to paint this as violent rioters, that was the word used by AG Pam Bondi, that 200 violent rioters attacked the ICE facility in Broadview. Nonsense. I was one of those 200 people. We were not violent. We had no weapons on us whatsoever. Nothing. Literally no weapons at all. And the idea that civilians standing, holding signs is violent is autocratic to call it violence. We have a constitutionally protected right to peaceful protest. And that's what we have been doing and what we will continue to be doing. So don't buy this Trump hype. Don't buy this propaganda. We'll talk more about that after this break, because there's a lot more we need to discuss. You're listening to the Qasim Rashid Show here on Sirius XM Urban View Channel 126, the most awesome show in the multiverse. If you're listening on Substack, make sure you hit that subscribe button so we can continue to create this content. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back. You're listening to the Qasim Rashid Show here on Sirius XM Urban View Channel 126, the most awesome show in the multiverse. Been a important show this so far. I'm glad to have brought to you Bae Franklin, who's on the Global Sumud Flotilla, Graham Platner running for U.S. Senate in Maine, two powerful people, two veterans continuing to serve our country in the best way they know how, and it's critical for us to support them as best as we can as well. Speaking of support, if you're listening on Substack, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Your support goes a long way towards ensuring we can continue to create this content, travel when we need to travel, meet people where they are, and bring you updates and interviews that corporate media simply does not. I want to close out the last 10 minutes of the show talking about what's happening in Chicago right now. As many of you know, the Trump administration regime had threatened, promised to send the military here, and kudos to J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, and Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, for putting a united front against Trump and pushing him out and preventing him from sending the military. In the meantime, they are escalating their ICE presence here. And I've been attending anti-ICE pro-justice protests in Broadview, Illinois. It's a suburb right outside of the Chicago city limits. For years, faith leaders have been showing up at this Broadview, Illinois location, this ICE facility, where they have been taking immigrants, taking people without due process of law, trafficking them. And over the last several months, many activists have started to show up, and I've been one of those activists starting to show up. And I want to be clear, I want to give all the flowers to the Christian and Jewish faith leaders who've been leading by example for years without any cameras present because it was the right thing to do. And it's because of the platform they built that many of us are now able to show up as well. And what was once 15, 20 people protesting now are hundreds of people protesting. And I want to emphasize they're doing it peacefully. But the thing is that the ICE army of Trump is increasing their aggression and violence against the American people. And this is why we need solidarity against extremism. I joined last week, I'm going to go again this week, to the Broadview location. And what they're doing is they moved the protest a block down the street. They put up fences, which is illegal, trying to distance us from the facility. But what ended up happening was that they pushed us to a main street, so we got even more visibility and even more protesters and even more solidarity. But ICE also increased their violence. Let me start by reminding everyone that according to numerous studies, 93% of the people ICE fascists have rounded up have no violent record whatsoever. Trump's claim that I'm here to round up violent criminals is crap. It's a nonsensical claim. 93% have no violent criminal record whatsoever. None. A lot of them have, more than 63% have no criminal record, period. Have no infraction, period. And it's like 62%. So that 30% that have a so-called criminal record, it's not violent. It's like they got caught with marijuana or something innocuous like that. Or they were caught speeding, which, okay, I don't advocate speeding, but you really need to deploy a fascist ICE army to stop people who are speeding? Are you kidding me? That's how we're spending our tax dollars? There's a video last week out of New York City where ICE responded to a woman pleading for her husband by slamming her into the wall, throwing her on the ground, and pulling her hair. How they rip children from the father as he's being ripped away. Brad Lander, the New York City comptroller, who's a former mayoral candidate, the highest ranking Jewish official in New York City, said this. He said, I was back at 26 Federal Plaza where an ICE agent violently threw this bereft woman to the ground in front of her kids. She had not touched him. She did not pose any threat. She had to be taken to the hospital. Seconds earlier, her husband had been abducted by masked ICE agents who did not identify themselves, did not present a warrant, did not give any lawful grounds for his detention. Every day, masked ICE agents are acting violently against our neighbors, illegally abducting them, holding them in cruel and inhumane conditions, treating them as less than human and not deserving due process, end quote. This is Brad Lander, elected official, New York City. Now, friends, a law enforcement agency committed to upholding the law does not kidnap, does not need to kidnap people. If they are truly upholding the law, then they follow the law. Then they procure a judicial warrant. They read people their rights. They ensure that they are following the constitutional guarantee, the guarantee of due process afforded to every person in this country. Yes, person. The Fifth Amendment says no person shall be denied due process of law. It doesn't say anything about citizens. It doesn't say anything about green card holders, about visas, about documented versus undocumented. It says person. And so when you're denying people due process of law, you are dehumanizing them. It is by definition genocidal. And ICE is not providing that due process, that guarantee. They're doing none of it. They're terrorizing innocent people. So a similar theme played out at the Broadview location last week when I was there, where ICE fascists pepperballed peaceful protesters. Fortunately, I was far enough away, about 50 meters away, so I wasn't hit directly. The smoke certainly traveled down to us, and we felt the coughing and the choking as a result of it. But we were unarmed, we were nonviolent, we were ordinary citizens, standing up to an autocratic and unaccountable police force that is denying our neighbors due process of law. And as I was among those protesters, while I was spared, I saw the impact it had on those who were hit directly. It's horrifying. We cannot cede ground on this point. Due process is a non-negotiable guarantee. It is a right afforded to every person in this country, bar none. And the best way to protect that due process is to relentlessly stand in solidarity for absolute justice. This has to be a unifying factor for all people in this country, regardless of our differences. Let me restate what I've said before. Justice permeates the human soul. It transcends creed, color, language, and borders. As a Muslim, I joined Christians and Jews and Sikhs and Hindus and people of all faiths and no faiths for the sake of justice at this protest. As an immigrant, as a Pakistani American, I joined Black, White, Latino, Arab, Indigenous, and more, documented and undocumented, to convey this message of justice without exception for all people in this country. That's what our Constitution calls us to do. And this is why I say that we need messengers, not martyrs. They are trying to turn us into martyrs by escalating violence. Don't take the bait. We need messengers, not martyrs. If they want to turn us into martyrs, that's not something in our control. Dr. King didn't want to be a martyr. Fred Hampton didn't want to be a martyr. Malcolm X didn't want to be a martyr. They were messengers, and they were extremely effective messengers. And so I say, especially to those who are U.S. citizens, we must step up as messengers to tell these stories, so that those who are traversing this nearly impossible immigration system do not become martyrs for this cause. Every single one of us must do our part to tell these stories and ensure that our neighbors, locally, statewide, nationwide, are aware of what is happening right under our noses. We need messengers to show up to these protests and document these injustices in real time. We need messengers to share this content we post online to maximize its reach, especially as corporate media continues to capitulate and enable these fascist policies. We need messengers who have the means to subscribe to help fund disseminating these stories so that they don't get stuck in algorithm hell, algorithm purgatory. As it has always been, when people have faced injustice throughout history, we the people are the ones that we've been waiting for. We the people are the ones that we've been waiting for. We cannot miss this moment. Because look, one fact is clear. One fact is explicitly clear to me. The Trump regime and ICE want us divided, silenced, and afraid. But in reality, they are the ones who are afraid. What I see at Broadview every time I go, and what I've seen time and time again when I go to these ICE facilities, when I protest, is that when we come together across faith and race and background, their fear-mongering collapses and they become afraid of us. Look, ICE boarded up their buildings. They put up illegal fences. They're hiding behind masks. They forced us to move to a new location. They instigated violence and pepperballed and shot rubber bullets at us. Why are they doing this to peaceful protesters? Because they are afraid of us. Because they know that when people stand united in courage, their cruelty cannot prevail. And in our unity, our protest numbers are continuing to grow. But just remember that unity isn't automatic. It requires each of us to step up. That means being a messenger. That means showing up to protest. That means sharing the truth online, talking to your neighbors, refusing to let corporate media bury these stories. It means investing in independent voices so we can keep documenting what others want to erase. Nothing I've shared is seismic. No one is asking you to, strap on a helmet and run into an ICE facility and break people out with their bare hands like it's out of a movie. No, we don't need that. What we need is an overwhelming voice, a unified voice, left and right, unified and combined, to recognize that, look, these are basic constitutional principles and we cannot compromise on these principles. I'm not going to back down. I'm going to continue to show up to this fight. I'm going to show up as a peaceful messenger. And the fight, if it becomes violent, is going to be because ICE is escalating that violence. I will not engage in violence. That's not my blood. That's not my nature. That's not who I am. It's never been who I am. I think words can accomplish in minutes what wars cannot in a millennia. And we need the peaceful messengers of every community to show up locally and let your voice be heard. Show up to those ICE facilities, protest them, let them know you will not tolerate them denying due process of law to your neighbors. This is our moment, guys. This is our moment. The question is not whether we have the power to stop ICE fascists. That's not the question at all. We have the power. The question is simply whether we have the courage to act on it. Because the reality is that no one person can do this alone. No one person can do everything. But the beauty is that no one person needs to do everything. We simply need every person to do your one thing. What is your one thing? Is it donating money? Is it sharing content? Is it showing up to these protests? Is it making signs? Is it working on a campaign, volunteering, door knocking, sending text messages, writing postcards, making phone calls? These are all things. Some of them cost money, some of them cost time, but they all move the ball forward. Find your one thing. Be that messenger and be relentless, and let's demand justice now. And I promise you, we will see meaningful success day after day, week after week, and certainly year over year. Whew. All right, my friends, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Qasim Rashid Show. You have my promise and my commitment to continue to speak in truth to power and combat these injustices and keep you informed. If you're listening on Substack, make sure you hit that subscribe button because your subscription is what helps keep us driving forward. I'm not funded by billionaires. I'm funded by we, the people, and your support and trust means the world to me. Thank you for tuning in. We've got another great show lined up next week. Same time, same place. Listen to us live at 10 a.m. Eastern on SiriusXM Review Channel 126, the most awesome show in the multiverse, or hit that subscribe button to Let's Address This with Qasim Rashid on Substack. My friends, continue speaking truth to power. Stay safe. God bless. Love all of you. Peace.